Welcome to the Choice of a Young Voice. Thank you for tuning in to Hope Channel Kenya. You are at the right channel, because today we are going to be talking about something very important. I say that almost every episode because it's true. This show is basically about the choices we make as young people in these last days that we are living in, and it's important for us to make the right choices. My name is Caroline Okoth. I am your host, and the topic we are handling today, drum roll, somebody, there's no drums here. Anyway, the topic we are handling today has to do with relationships. Yes. We need to prepare for marriage. Is it important to prepare for marriage? And the big question we are asking is, should we be in a relationship when we are not ready to be married? Food for thought. We are going to discuss that. And to help us understand this topic are our lovely couple, Mr. and Mrs. Ted and Bilha Kenya. Thank you for coming and for being here today. Salimia watu.
Hi everyone. We're really happy to be here.
Karibu sana.
Hello.
And here we have our audience of young people who are here to learn and grow. So we are talking about marriage. You happen to be married. That's a good thing. How long have you been married?
We've been married 8 years now.
8 years. Goals. So, in fact, before we get really into the topic, I'd just like to ask you to share a bit of your experience. Yeah, how did you know that you are ready for marriage?
Ted?
She said yes. Done. No, which the short answer to that is, it was an answered prayer. That sounds very cliche, but it was an answered prayer. It was a time when I was looking for a relationship, and I'd shared with my core friends. I told them that this one, at that time, I remember it was a specific birthday, and I shared with my friends at that point. I told them that I'm ready to share my life with somebody else, you know, and I prayed with them. And then I think within a month of that prayer, somebody came into the picture. And
wow, yeah. Within a month.
Yeah, but yeah, the thing about, but part of that story is I had known her before, but not like that. So he says, and his eyes were opened, and I was like, oh yeah, come back. But before she was furniture, and then I was like, oh yeah, she walks and she talks, and you know. So.
Wow, Bila.
How did I know? Well, yeah, I was really tired of the games. I'd had quite a rough journey dating, and I was really tired of the games, and I really wanted to just settle down and be with someone. We're in a committed relationship. Yeah.
So were you also praying in the same season?
I was praying, but not as hard as Ted.
So God answered his prayer. Is anyone here married? Yes, those who are married, maybe you could also answer the same question. Behind there, is someone passing a microphone?
Thank you so much. Actually, just as the guests have said, it's more of prayers. Because sometimes you feel like you are low, you are lonely, you want a partner. You know, your mind is focused that I need someone next to me. Someone that we can talk to, we can do things together, mutually, not just friend, mutually. So again, it's about prayers. If you pray, God will give you the one that you want.
Amen. Hey, there are ladies here saying amen. Yes.
Yes, indeed, prayers works a lot, but I want to believe it is you as a person. What have you decided to do? Because you cannot marry because others are getting married. But when you decide now it's now right time for me to settle down, then with prayers it happens. Thank you.
Wow. But then I think I still want to ask the question, is it just a feeling that comes? Like, now I feel like I want to get married. I should do it now. Or are there like, you know, things you're like, okay, I have this, maybe I'm working, I have this now. I'm in this spiritual space. Do you get the question?
Yes.
I think I would try attempt it. I wouldn't say it's a one size fits all, but my understanding from it was my experiences before my wife. I had 2 previous failed relationships, and they really put me in a tailspin, you know, because I mean, if you asked me about the breakups, I wouldn't tell you that this person was so bad, they did, no, it just, we were just not seeing where we were going. So for me, I think one of the things that came to when at the point of getting married is, where is this going to go to? What will we do together? What will be different about this? It made me start asking myself about what's my value addition? You know, most of the times it's like, what is the other person going to do for me? But it also got me thinking that, of what benefit am I to them in life, you know? So I think it helped me. And then also hanging out with people outside my age bracket, you know, like plus 10, then I find like I found a very different worldview when I was talking to people who are over 10 years older than me, who are in that space, than, because my peers, we all had more or less the same view that I found, yeah, not sufficient to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Ted has actually, when we were discussing this, he was likening it to a journey. I don't know, I didn't make that example. He was saying, like, when you're taking a trip somewhere, it's important you know where you're going, you check it out on Google Maps. Is it 3 hours drive? Is it 4 hours walking? Bicycle? How are you getting there? And so we need to find out, like, really read about it, talk to people about who are already married, to really find out, do your investigation and your research. Because I think we do more investigation and research in the university of choice. We do more investigation and research for buying shares or joining a company as an employee there. But when it comes to marriage, I don't know why we feel like somehow the Holy Spirit shall guide us all the way. And it's important that we do our research. So find out, where are you going? What are the expectations? Is it cold? Is it hot? Would you carry a sweater? Do you wear sleeveless? What, I mean, ni wapi unaenda? Because what happens, people split very easily. Separation and divorce happens because of false expectations. You expected A, you're getting B. But it's because most likely you had no clue where you are going, destination. Unashangaa gari, kwani naenda Mombasa? Ati, ai, kwani una habari? Yeah, well, unaona unashuka Meru and you're going a different direction. Then before you know it, you're upset, you're angry, and you leave and you walk away. So just do your research and find out where you're going. But I would say the very, very, very first step of preparing for marriage is to consult with God. Like someone has said here, not all of us are meant for marriage. And it sounds like a very un-African thing to say, but not all of us are meant for marriage. So you just seek God genuinely and ask Him, impress it upon my heart to know whether I am meant for this union or whether I'm not meant for this union. A simple thing that someone told me when I was single was, if the desire is still there after you're consistently praying earnestly, then most likely you're meant for marriage. But if you genuinely actually don't feel the desire, then maybe you're not. Because there's no way you cannot feel the desire at all and you're meant for marriage. You get what I mean? Yeah, so it's important to just keep in tune with God and to pray about it earnestly and to find out what your life's calling is. Because marriage is not really a calling, but it definitely needs you to be committed and to know that God has called you to it.
Yeah. Wow. Any reactions? Yes, Ken.
I have a question already. I know it talks about marriages that are ordained by God, and she gives an estimate. You'll not be surprised to find in 100 marriages, maybe one is ordained or even less. There are some things that personally I desire. Maybe once I get into marriage, I may have a wife who we can consistently have a spiritual life and also influence the same on the kids. But there may be this situation when you want to do portions of Bible study, yeye anachagua viatu, ama when the lady wants to initiate the kind of Bible study, the man ana watch ball. So I'm trying to ask, what how exactly are we supposed to have this foundation at the courtship level, so that by the time I'm coming to marriage, I'm not now coming to the lady, tell her, this is what I want us to do, this is how it will affect the kids spiritually. How are we supposed to have such a foundation that can help us if to maybe for the marriage to be ordained.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The research work and okay.
Okay, it's a good question you ask because I think I began thinking about this and now I'm even decided about it. I feel like if you don't prepare for marriage, like if you, I noticed that many times most people have a linear idea about marriage, like now let me just work on my degree, let me do this, then I'm like, oh, I've got a degree, I've got a job, that paycheck looks good, now let me look for a wife. And then within a very short time, because many times people feel like it's their finances that is holding them back from a marriage, they quickly get married and they think that the counselor will be enough for them to get married. But I've got some bad news for you. I feel like if you use that model, the counselor will prepare you, will just give you coping mechanisms. You see, you've not prepared enough. Like at that point, counselor at that point is changing your worldview within 3 months. You've invested 8 years in thinking a certain way. So the counselor is just be telling you now, here, namwachianga too, But at this point, if you're at the point of, I believe that the things that you just start thinking about them earlier in terms of, for one, things that you can work on your part. So it helps you be authentic because it's very easy for us to take on what people consider to be this is the ideal. Nothing against the examples I give, but if people make it sound that it's a prize trophy to have a choir director as a husband, so you decide that and you're competitive and decide that I've got a choir director. Then you get to the house and you're like, but now this choir, we don't have choir practice today. So you're like, which wall is your ladder leaning on? So I think it's important to just having those interactions early. Saying no now does not mean it's no forever. It may be I'm not ready now, but later on. So I'll just be hearing, seeing, reading about it. Right now, there's a lot of science about relationships. Some things that I feel like we really blamed the devil about. I remember I was reading about something around just things that, for example, things that. It's common when it comes to sexual purity. There's a thing about sexual tension. There's actually a word like that, and there's a research done about it, and you're like, oh, so this is not really the devil. It's our bodies, how it responds to how we put ourselves in certain situations. So because you are informed, you now make right decisions about it. The reality now I can tell you from the married side of things is I had more time before I was married to myself. Like before I was married, I would just decide that. Let's go and see what's happening in Eldoret. And the next morning, I'm in my way to Eldoret. And I will make my way to Eldoret, or what's happening and I will, Uganda is a nice place to go to. And I didn't have to consult. I was like, because the resources are there, and this is my father's world, twende, that changes. And now you see the thing about it also, how we prepare for marriage. So if I'm a person who, that's generally, it's still I believe it's a core part of me, the spontaneity that comes in it. If I'm going to marry somebody who that throws them off, then I want to be in a place. Remember earlier I mentioned I need to figure out also if am I adding value to somebody else's life. So if I feel like my kind of temperament and the things that are of themselves different but they're not sinful, for example, they need to want to travel without little, I don't need to have an Excel thing to travel. I'm like, we'll excel as we travel. But for others, just being able to understand and have that thing, for me, I found that really key. I mentioned that because I have seen some marriages break up, partly because I feel not that the individuals were evil of them. It was just those kind of expectations she mentioned. People got married and then somebody decided that I'm going to study here, I'm going to do this here, and that drifts, it becomes a drift and you're like, I thought we'd be doing this together, but then I was like, did you ask me? So it's important to already, from this point, you're already starting to align yourself with people who align to your expectations. So what I imagine my marriage would be, are we going to be watching soccer matches together? If that is happening during your dating, don't be surprised if it's happening in your marriage. It's just a thing that you start figuring out if this is not the thing that I want in my marriage, then what am I preparing to? Because I feel rarely do I see a drastic change between dating and marriage. If anything, people are at their best behavior during dating. I can't tell you that.
That's true.
It's true. Then marriage, the truth. Anyway, I feel like, okay, we are in a time now where marriage is not taken as seriously as it should. I don't know, maybe it's just the desire for the wedding that many people are like rushing towards it. And maybe I could ask, why do you think many people are just rushing to get married in the times we're living in? I've given an example.
My brother put it very well. Like, in fact, Ellen White talks about those kind of marriages being you're mated, but you're not matched. And mated is a very carnal description of a union. I mean, you think about two animals. When you think they were mating, that means like it's two animals. That means animal instincts are the ones that have taken charge of your decision. Matched, of course, is more, you think of thought processes, you think of something that someone has taken time to make a decision about. And there are very many reasons, but social pressure is one of them. Social pressure either from the community, whoever the community is, usually the communities of our family members, our friends. Who are asking, hey, Bana, 25.
What's happening?
Or 30 or 35 or 40. And you start to feel, there's something wrong. Maybe I should get into this union. Social pressure. Some people also, like, I think it's more of a man thing. Niko na do. Nini ingine nangoja, you know. And some are very outright in saying that, you know, I'm looking for a wife because I finally made the money that I need. But do you want to actually be married? Not really, but see, ukipata do, unapata wife. And it goes even further now. Anapata wife wa kwanza, then he gets even more money. He feels it's time to get a second and a third and a fourth. So those are the kind of things I think that happen.
Maybe does anyone have something to add? Yes, I can give her the mic.
I have a question. How can I know he's the one for me?
Bas. Is there a he in the picture? Is there a he in the picture? Let me give her.
Okay, I have a question too. Is there age limit for one to get married? Because some people tend to say, like, if you are a lady by 25 years old, you are supposed to be getting married.
Yes.
And then speaking about age, I also wanted to ask the age difference. What gap should you leave? You realize that today young people are dating their age mates. Even after they've known, I'm actually going nowhere with this person, but they just flat around with no clear focus. Age gap.
Is that really age anyway? But it's a good question. It's a very good question.
Thank you so much. I just want to add on top of what you asked about why are people rushing. As to me, when I'm planning to get married, the reason as to why I would like for somebody to come into my life is for us to tread together so that one day we shall go to heaven.
Amen.
And rooted in this, I think the things which you are talking about, creating time for Bible study, devotion, if it is rooted on why are you people together? We want to go to heaven with my partner and also our offspring. One day we would be as a family there too. The reason as to why people get into wrong decisions and you find that people get married, they go very fast into marriage. One, you will find that when they were in courtship, they messed up. And maybe the pregnancy has come out, and therefore they want to rush things before it is realized. Another thing you will talk of, I want, maybe you are from a relationship initially. I want her to know that I was not a kind of a person she was thinking of.
So you get married.
I get married so that she sees that she has lost something very much important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's first respond before we continue. I don't even know which one you want to start with.
I think I'll pick on a bit about age. I think the thing about it's within context. It's good for us to, again, we've all grown up in different contexts. So
yes,
and I know everybody can give not everybody, but many can give an example of people who have been out of the norm. But I think it's good to understand where it comes from. For example, I mean, the idea about usually the man being older than the lady. Generally, the importance about that. Oh, actually, do I come to the importance of that? Let me just put it in the cycle about. It's scientifically proven that women mature faster than men. You know, from primary school, we've seen that happening. So it is usually to an advantage, scientifically speaking, when the man is older. Because then there's a better sync. It's easier to get along in that space. And I think and when I look at it in terms of, if I was to give you an example, within the Kenyan context, if you think about it from class 1, I mean, how okay, when 844 was there, I don't know how the classes are now. It used to be, you used to have lower primary, which was class 1 to, it was class 1 to what class?
Not 4?
No, class 1 was like, I think it was to 4. Lower primary was to 4. And then there was upper primary, which was I think 5 to 8. Then how many? So you see, 4 years, and then you come to high school, which was 4 years. Then university, 4 years. So and then I've also seen in the workspace, usually within 4 years, somebody also wants to have a difference in their career. So mentally, there's that thing that happens within our minds around that
4
gap,
years.
that 4 year. I'm pro that 4 year gap based on the science around that. But it's true in terms of there's a marked difference between class 1 and a class 5, you know, Form 1 and Form, you know. So there's a lot that goes on in that space. The thing around it is, I feel like it's very easy. Again, this is my theory around it. It's very easy if you're both the same age mates to. It's harder for somebody to give clearer direction, you know. Like we're both trying to figure it out. So what are we? Ama he. But we're like, even though tunaendelea, and it's like, okay, you know, that's maybe how I would look at it from. But that was just laying it down. My wife and I are not too far apart, but somehow we get along, do we? We try. Well. So I mean, yes, there's a gap there. So, but my point is, when you look at it in that space, then comes the other space around it, which sometimes, yes, there's the outlier, and we can go to the Bible, and there's Sarah, and again, you guys remember Sarah's story was really long. But again, God has told us right now we know about how our bodies behave and where we are, and I'm pro. My conviction is if God has put it in your heart, the earlier you can get married, the better it is for you. You know, at that point, the science proves that our hormones are in their prime. You know, it's better for you that place. The other aspect of it is, I just think. I mean, there are other layers that now we can think about it in terms of what does it mean for me economically, what does it mean for me socially, how will I bond with my child, you know. God gives you a very energetic child at a point when you're like, you know, at that point you have the energy to, it's good, just good to have those things in mind. But and there are people who actually do pull it, because nowadays we're having more people who are older going to fitness and all those things. And I have also been privileged to see people in the West who tend to get married older, but somehow it works easier there. I mean, no, it tends to work for them, you know. So I think the thing about, I'm not saying that there's really one size fits all, but it's good to understand what you're subscribing to, because the pool you subscribe to, then also it requires you to put a different type of effort. We don't all put the same type of effort in a relationship. I mean, the areas of concern for you will be different from somebody's. So once you're aware about it, because just a last one maybe I'll give is when that gap is very big, because I mean, in a case where you decide that you're marrying somebody who's 10 years your senior, 15 years, or I mean those bigger numbers, when you're excited about something, somebody's like, so the things that are exciting you now. you know, so who are you sharing your joy with? Because they're like, I did that 15 years ago now. That's when you want to go. So it becomes, it's likely to bring some discontentment. But depending on what it was. So when you look at those kind of gaps, you are like, let's travel. Somebody's like, no, I just want to read the newspaper. I just want to read the newspaper. Just, you know. So it's important to also see what that plays into. And maybe that's not the type of energy you have. So if that's what you're going for.
Thanks, Ted. Bila.
How do I know he's the one? And also age. Yeah, I think he's covered the age thing well. Ideally, it's best, especially for females, because of our reproductive system and stuff, to get married the earlier, the better. However, of course, we don't live in a perfect or ideal world. Usually, it's the opposite. The case is the opposite. So I think when God provides the right mate for you, regardless of how old you are, don't hesitate. Just move forward in confidence in Him, knowing that He'll take care of your marriage, because many more people are getting married older than they used to in our parents' age. So just go ahead. I think I don't think there's an ideal, but if you've gone off the ideal, please take comfort and still go ahead.
Were you guys within the ideal?
Oh no. Oh, far from the ideal. Yeah. So, but we went forward anyway. So, how do I know he's the one? She's the one. We kind of alluded to it about the journey. Find out about this person. Of course, you've already established number one. I am meant to be married. You're sure. Okay, great. God has said it's okay. Then number two, of course, find out about this person. I just want to touch a little bit.
Before you go into that, I like to leave the viewer hanging so that they stay tuned. We want to get into now, you know, the preparation. some of the questions that have been asked. How do you know that this is the person to get married to? So if you want to listen to that part of this discussion, please come back after the break. Do not change that channel. Welcome back, viewer. Thank you for staying tuned. You are watching The Choice of a Young Voice, and we are talking about preparation for marriage. And before we went on a break, Bilha was telling us, you know, how do you know that this person's the one? And I interrupted you. But before you continue, maybe I'd like to personalize it a little bit. How did you know that Ted was the one?
I'm still trying to find out. No. Well, yeah, I definitely had consulted God. I was very aware, and that God has called me to marriage. I was very aware of it because the feeling was not going. Yet it was not this desperate ache for a spouse at the same time, which is also something I think we should be very aware of. It should never, just because God has called you to marriage, it should not be that thing for anafika wen bana you mechoka, you're desperate. No, that's not what we mean by being called to marriage. It should be just a calm, subtle feeling where you desire it, but you still leave it to God to do his thing at his time. But yeah, I knew that I wanted to be married. Number two, of course my mom and my friends and I were all praying about it, so we knew that regardless of who will come our way, it will be God's chosen person. But number three, something that I did is I had to really do an audit in my life to redefine what a husband should be like. Because what I had grown up defining was very skewed by media and other wrong influences. And so I knew that Ted was the one because he did not match anything that I had predetermined in my mind based on the wrong influences.
He opens the door for you. What do you mean, those things by media?
Well, after redefining what a godly husband should look like or a godly man should look like, I realized it was very far from the kind of men that I had been dating. And so that was a tough one because you can imagine you've accustomed yourself to one thing and God is calling you to another. And so when we began dating, I mean, even just at the initial phase of this guy, there's something that could happen between us. I was aware that there was certain character that he had that I felt was godly. Then number four, of course, I believe in lists. So, because when you're buying shares, you go and say, oh, you ndo rate yenu aya na nyinyi niongeze 2% bana. You know, you do your research. So I had a list, but I had committed the list to God, and I told him, you know what, I don't want to, like, I'm not looking for an angel because I'm not an angel myself, but I do have specific preferences that I have in a man. And so he marked off most of the list, and I felt that it is time.
Ted, do you have anything to say? No.
Let's use the fifth. No, but I think maybe no, not on this one. I think she's nailed that.
She's nailed it. Okay, good. Then there's another question. I left you hanging. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask that knowing the partner that I want to stay with, is it right for me to have a different, so many girls? Like,
and then you choose.
I compare notes. I even have a Dasan or a Dasan. Is it good?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Before you respond, let me. Who else hand is up? I see. Yes. Please pass the microphone. Okay. It's okay.
Thank you. Actually, I just wanted to comment, but it's good that he has also brought it up. I was once reading a book of Nancy Van Pelt, and she was actually advising, because where we really do mess when we are identifying our partners. And so she was advising that we are free, we are at liberty to make as many friends as possible. And that is where most of us now today mess. We mess up at that time. We realize that marriage is a journey. And once you are in it, the Bible encourages us that getting out of it is now a tough war, because
Yeah,
God
it's
doesn't
not
allow
advised,
divorce.
Divorce.
I mean. So you realize that when we are starting at friendship level, then Nancy Van Pelt says that do as many friends as possible. But again, the boundary that we were talking about earlier on must also be there. So you have to know that this one, her characters or his characters are reaching this limit. So you'll be able to identify and cope up with at a later time. This is, marriage is a bit unique because that is where you are given a certificate before you start. When you are learning, you are given certificate when you're
done.
After you've done. But this is a learning situation where certificate comes earlier on.
Yeah,
So we really need to do much while we are doing friendship at friendship level.
Thank you so much. Maybe just one more and then you can respond.
I wanted to ask, okay, I saw a kissy lady who was very beautiful. And I felt like I should tell my dad. So at home when we are having fun, I shared this, and then Daddy was like, a kissy lady here? No. Can parents play a role in our decision making? Because at times they limit us a lot when you want to sell yourself outside and explore and perhaps identify with these people who are not your tribe. Can they play a role?
Well, let's leave it at that for now. And responses, who's starting?
There's only two questions, right?
Ted, yes.
Wait, I'm trying to remember the first question because I had some ideas on it, but this one has caught my attention. I think when it comes to ethnicity, it's important for all of us where we know where we come from, our homes. And I feel that it's important for us to, because we understand where our parents, if I already know that my parents feels negatively towards a certain ethnicity, I think it's the onus is on us to start selling the positives of that person to them. I look at us as the generation who have really mixed and we've interacted with a lot of people, you know what I mean? Like the people, you'd find that most of our parents in their days, it was possible to have just interacted with one ethnicity throughout, and the other one was looked at as the enemy. So that would be the mindset, but just helping them also grow. Remember, just the part of it that we also know we have a responsibility to also help our parents see the grown-up side of us. So if I'm making responsible decisions and I'm giving credit to the enemy, then I'm helping them. So parents like, oh, really, that one? Oh yeah, okay. So can anything good come from? So the parent is already starting to see the good side of that other space. I mean, in my space. I've grown up, and I'm thankful to God for that. Let me consider it a privilege. Actually, it is a big privilege. I grew up in an estate where everybody was all my mom's friends were my aunties. So it took a while for that ethnicity thing to register in my mind. I had an auntie who was a Taita, I had an auntie who was a Kikuyu, I had an auntie who was a Mkamba. I had all these people. They were all, and I used to play their children. They were all my cousins. So at the point people were telling me that so-and-so can't be your cousin, I was like, no, but so-and-so is my auntie. So, and no, by the time it got to register, so it was never an issue. So in my case, coming from an island and going to where she comes from, it was not a conversation for, where has he gone to, because in our family it's already understood. So I'm saying, because some people may think that it's just easy to make that interaction, but you could be the one to make that bridge, I believe that God made everybody beautiful, and maybe if I would now segue that with what he had said earlier about the danger of mingling with many people at the dating stages, you can confuse yourself because you'll see beauty in every place. Now you know which beauty you want to keep. So in that case, I highly recommend just group dating. If you're going for a social Sunday, you're all together. You don't have to be in an exclusive space, but you're able to identify and figure out which one is it that has got the strongest network, and you're aligned to that one.
And you don't have to make it known that you're interviewing. So in a social Sunday here, I don't have to say, hey, so let me ask you, you're a potential candidate. And then next week I tell her, then like you just do it silently. You don't have to I think because when you make it known verbally that I'm a potential, that's when we have problems. Because see, last week Williambia Carol, and for this week you're telling me. That's the problem. But just interact with us very neutrally.
Any more questions behind that?
Thank you very much. Well, I have to say the topic is I have a lot of interest in the topic, and I like how Bilha responds to the questions. You speak the language of someone I know. My question really is more or less tied to what has just been answered. The question of parents say on who you date and who you don't. What exactly does culture have to do with marriage? Because I know it plays a role.
Oh, it does, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
What does culture have to do in marriage? Before you respond, any other? Yes. Why are you laughing? You're happy, okay.
Is there a difference between divorce and separation? And is it okay for a young girl like me to get married to a divorced or separated man? So for instance, this man was married. I don't know if they are separated or divorced. He has kids. He sees his kids, but the mother does not want him to see the kids. So it's a push and pull. Now this guy wants to move on. I want to get married to this guy. Is it okay? What should I do?
That's a tough one. That's a heavy one. Just give her the microphone and then you can.
Okay, I have a comment. Biblically, marriage is holy and ordained. So to young people who are still not yet ready to get there, let's wait for God's time. Let's not cause heartbreaks and depression to other people's children.
Amen. Preach. Okay, this one seems so bunny. Please give him the microphone.
Yeah, my brother talks of parents and the culture, but I want to add the interreligion. Like Christian or a Seventh-day Adventist and someone is a Catholic. Maybe there are our friends and youth out there that are struggling in the religions.
Truth. And these are all these aspects are things that we need to consider in preparation for marriage. So you have a lot to say.
Not really, but hey. So I mean, sorry, let me go ahead with the point about culture and parenting. I think parents, regardless of how many mistakes they've made, are still our parents. They are a source of authority in our families, and I think it's important not to black them out. I have also seen there's like a trend that's coming up, pole pole, where you just come and say, "This is my call, so we're getting married next month," and your parents don't even have a chance to weigh in or make a comment. And by the umeamua na umeamua, I think it's very selfish and rude and disrespectful. And I think it's important to always introduce that kind of topic to your parents, pole pole. I believe in bringing them home, just introduce them even among friends, have lunch with them, or like ease your parents into that decision and help them to make the decision with you, even if you have decided in your mind, because there's a reason. They know you better than this person who you're getting married to. And so they can see certain things also, especially I hear fathers can see things in a man when you bring him home that you can't see, and a mother can see something in your girlfriend potential that you may not see. So involve them in the decision. But having said that, I'm also aware that we don't necessarily come from ideal homes where we have an elder father and a deaconess mother. And some of us come from very broken places where you don't really feel your parents have much of authority to speak about godliness or the right choices, because maybe they made wrong choices themselves. But again, you see, they did what, circumstances that revolve around the decisions that they made and who they are may not necessarily be something within their control. So I think out of respect, involve them in your decisions and try and honor them, because that's a command. It doesn't say honor your godly parent, it just says honor your parents. And so in honoring them, we just involve them in the decision and then try to ease them out. So some of us may take a little longer than we should in courtship because we're trying to honor our parents so hard than others who already have that nice, perfect, ideal home. But I think it's worth the sacrifice not to be outrightly disobedient to what they're saying. Try and settle that before you make wedding plans and all that, because we have seen through experience sometimes that doesn't work for your good. Even when you are convicted this is the right decision, when your parents are we don't want him or her, it doesn't end up very well. About culture, I think it's very important to be aware. I say I like stereotypes. because it informs you of what typically you should expect. And so I'm glad that we have stereotypes because they kind of already set the landmark. So what I'm praying for in my mind is that God help me not to meet the negative part of the stereotype, but it's good to be aware. Don't bury your head in the sand and say, yeah, that's what they say about kisses, but it's not all true. Well, it could be. And you know, and when they say Kikuyus a certain way or Luos a certain way, there's somewhere that story came from. So what we are praying for is an exception, that we are not going to meet the negative part of the stereotype. But you see, stereotypes also have good and bad.
Yeah.
Stereotypes are not always bad. When you say Kikuyus love money, it means we are empowered. We we care about wealth creation in this country. But also on the bad side, we can maybe go to very extreme measures in order to attain it.
Yes,
same thing with
true.
laws, there's good and the bad.
Yeah.
And so when I met Ted, I was very aware of the stereotypes, but they were only just a landmark to help me to understand. And also remember that when you're marrying a person, you're not marrying them, you're marrying the community. So maybe she doesn't meet the stereotypes negative, but you find an uncle who is exactly what you are told. So it's important not to also ignore and say, no, it's just me and my boo, we're just going to, no. Like it's a community. So yeah, pay attention to that.
Yeah. Ted, even as you respond to, there's one on divorce, and I also want you to respond to, then how is there a timeline for courtship before you get married? Like, should it be 1 year, 3 months, 10 years? Yes.
Okay. I think that's an easy one to take. The other, I honestly, I would recommend somebody who's thinking about marrying a divorcee, a separated person. I'm not qualified to answer that. Go see a pastor, a counselor. They'll give you a more balanced opinion. I'm biased on that one. So, when it comes to, which was the question around,
yes, about how long you should be in a...
How long dating? There are factors concerning where are you in your career? Where are you in your career? What are you doing and what is she doing? So that you can be able to match that thing. I ideally would not recommend more than 2 years to that, and this is. The reason to that is I think it's good to have a close date to something. One is knowing how much time it is, because dating is expensive. Yeah, you know, dating is, if it's not, you see, if you're going to have conversations for 3 years, can you put those bundles into and see how much, and you could have been together? That's an economic decision.
That is true.
Yeah. So you know, if you're traveling back and forth, but you're in the same space, so now we're not using electricity, we're not charging phones, we're not, you know, I mean, there's that aspect of it. But I think also the other part of it is just the sexual purity. You know, that time this is a thing that. I mean, I've been taking a lot of reading on this, and when I was just reading about the whole thing about sexual tension, it's out there in the internet. And you know, people can say the internet, but there are many credible sources, and they'll tell you about this, because the more if you are attracted to somebody, you become more vulnerable to them. You know, so your guard becomes lower and lower the more you hang around them. So the more you spend that time, then you're exposing yourself, you know. So the idea is you have those dates, and it's within that time, ideally, assuming you're in the same locale, it's enough time to plan, fundraise, and, you know, and close that story. But I mean, don't make it a degree and a master's program, man. No, because you're losing out on meaningful time on building up your relationship.
So if you are in a, if you feel like maybe, okay, you're not maybe working or things don't seem to be working out, should you be in a relationship when
That's a good question, because I feel like when you need to define, are you working, or is your work not giving you enough returns?
Yes.
Because those are there are two things. Because I'll give an example. I mean, us we are Nairobians, and the time I was dating my wife, I used to. This may sound really crazy to some people, but I remember when talking to some other guys, they're telling me that, hey, if you can feed yourself and pay your bills, you can keep out. You can
get married.
I was like, that sounded so crazy then. And when I looked at it, I was like, actually, this guy, it opened my mind, because I had ideals of what I was looking into. And you see, again, it's a worldview. It depends on who you wanted to marry, you know. But those days, I would tell my wife that I would tell her where she used to stay, that I am coming in my car at this particular time. So make sure you're at the bus stop. My car is picking people here, and I was in a bus. So this bus would come to this place, it would come, and it just made, it was a fun of it. But the point is, we got to where we wanted to go to, and you know, so the point was, it was not the car that was, because I was like, you know, and that was my reality at that point in time. The amount of money I had was enough to pay fare for 2, and I would pay. Really, you know, that was where I was, and you know, and that I owned up to that reality. I didn't take a loan for it, and I didn't, you know. So the thing is also, are you able to be vulnerable to somebody to accept you for where you are? Because sometimes in our not being vulnerable, you may find that you actually got the right person, but you're hiding cards, and that other person, you know, as in Genesis, God gives you a helpmate. There are things that I used to do, and I tell people that I find that I used to use a lot more energy and effort before I got married, and now I use less. Like because of her, I would do so much. It's like, why all those steps? Just do this. And okay. You know. So the thing is just being able to. You may find that whatever you're doing this could be to help you. What you call it, bridge that puzzle into it, and then there's also your reality, because so you're not in a space where you're being in a relationship that is pushing you to steal, pushing you to this, but it's also still, and it's also not depriving you of ambition. If somebody says that mwisho yako ni kulipa bus fare, then also there's a problem, because you should have somebody who challenges you as well, which she has done. You know, so.
Okay, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just a disclaimer. So we know about the maximum. We never focus on the minimum time we should take to date. I would say 6 months is a good average in terms of minimum, because also we tend to also get married very quickly. Does
quality time have an impact?
Yes, absolutely. The kind of context you're in. I mean, of course, if I'm dating someone who's in Nairobi and I'm in Kisumu, the 6 months won't go by as quickly as if we're in the same campus or we're workmates in the same company. It's not the same. Of course, context applies, but also let's be cautious not to there's a word it talks about, like treading. You're going quickly, but cautiously. So don't rush it also too much, because also we hear of announcements for, you've only seen them twice singing in the same choir, and the next minute you see fast reading, you're like it's so fast. So let's also not go so quickly.
I don't have time, just one brief in a few seconds.
Friends, ladies are too attached to each other until at times you feel her girlfriend is dating my girlfriend. Like they're too close until you don't have time for each other. How do friends affect relationships?
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to ask, on a Christian template, what are the bare minimums to consider before you take someone as a potential for marriage? Rather, what are the irreducible differences? Because we get ourselves in situations where you have vested your emotions, you're really committed towards dating this person, but there's just a few elements that could be gray areas, rather hazy for you to take that step of faith. So
thank you. And you have a minute each, literally. I don't even know what you're going to do that time, but I would advise you to encourage the young people and give your last remarks.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so marriage is a beautiful thing. It was set up by God. So don't consult outside him. Just consult within the author of marriage, and surround yourself with godly people. Look for people who are in marriages that you admire, and consult with them as well, because also whatever you focus on to find your resource material for these things is what you'll end up emulating.
Yes.
So if you're emulating Beyonce and other, I don't know, I'm sorry for the specific example, but if you're emulating pop stars, then most likely you're building a foundation for a pop star marriage. So emulate godly people.
Amen. Amen.
I would say, I think the Christian template is there in the Bible when it talks about, in Corinthians, it talks about love is kind, love is patient. Substitute love with your name there and figure out if you're matching out those things. So let's make it more about building ourselves than the other person, because that's what you have control over. So that can I be the person I'm looking for is looking for, because all the time it's easier to talk about them and ignore our own our own homework. So I think that's what I would give to.
And friends. Your girlfriend and her friend are spending too much time together.
No, I think, even the Bible, I like to read it as wholesome. The Bible, that principle of if you're not really accepted in a certain town, shake the dust off your feet and move on. Sometimes let's not insist.
Dear viewer and those who are here, I hope you have been blessed by this discussion, and take the principles, and it's found in the Word of God. And there's so many also, Christian books we can read as young people. Ellen White has written a couple that talk about these things. So we should go the extra mile to read these books and to seek God and get his guidance, because marriage is such a solemn institution. You cannot get into it without God. So dear viewer, I hope you've been blessed, and I hope to see you next week. Goodbye.